Hi, I'm Mike Lowe for Digital Camera, and this is our review of the Pentax Q, which is the world's smallest and lightest compact system camera. The Q takes the compact system camera to new levels of compactness. With a 12.4 megapixel backlit 1/2.3 inch size CMOS sensor at its heart, the system wholeheartedly shuns the larger sensor system cameras. To get straight to the point, such a small sensor means shallow depth of field is harder to achieve at standard to mid-range focal lengths than with other cameras. That sumptuous blurred background that epitomises many a pro portrait isn't really achievable using the Q. On the upside, however, the 5.5 times magnification means that lenses are far smaller than any other system camera that's out there. However, they're so small, they're perhaps to the point of being a little bit difficult to use. For the Q lenses, Pentax has chosen leaf shutters. Such lens shutters do mean a faster flash sync of up to 1/2000th of a second can take place, although this is limited to 1/250th of a second when attaching an external flash gun. Despite the compact size SLR performance statement of the press release, Pentax isn't, at least in my opinion, looking to challenge the compact system camera market. It's more looking to take on the high-end compact camera market, as this is where the Q is more closely aligned. Really though, the Q is a world all of its own, a miniature street photographer's camera unlike anything else out there. The Q's design in some respects harks back to the 80s when Pentax released the 110 Super. This camera took 110 film and shot frames that were 13 by 17 millimeters, which is quite small in size compared to 35mm, but ironically is actually quite similar to Micro Four Thirds size, whereas the Pentax Q's 1/2.3 inch sensor is considerably smaller than this. It's a bit of a shame perhaps that Pentax didn't take on the larger sensor size into its design. The Q's contrast detect AF system is pretty good in use, but it's not quite as fast as that found in its compact system camera competitors, and to really stand out it should have been. Although it's difficult to illustrate in here, the screen also particularly suffers in brighter sunlight, which makes it very hard to see, and this is further problematic in that there's no accessory port, and although there's a hot shoe it's not possible to attach an electronic viewfinder. It's only possible to attach an optical viewfinder, which is sold separately. It's image quality where the Q makes things interesting. Despite the theory that smaller micro lenses on a small sensor surface should produce limited or even poor image quality, the Q bucks the trend to some degree. In fact, the Q has the best image quality we've seen from a 1/2.3 inch size sensor. This is particularly true at low ISO sensitivities, where shots are clean and crisp. ISO 400 remains decent, but there's a slight dip thereafter. Using the 8.5mm lens and the centre sharpness is outstanding, but there are issues with barrel distortion that aren't just dependent on using this particular lens. Open up the RAW files and the edges of images are particularly distorted compared to their JPEG counterparts, showing that the camera puts a lot of distortion correction on to the JPEG images. The RAW files are also considerably more noisy compared to their JPEG counterparts, and as you get into the high ISO sensitivity, shots aren't particularly usable, unless you want a grain-like effect when using the black and white mode. For £600 with the 8.5mm f1.9 lens, the Q certainly isn't a cheap camera, and at that price we'd have to ask whether or not it's better than other compact system cameras, and in short we'd have to say no. Perhaps it challenges some of the high-end compact market, even though it's slightly different to that. We like the small size and the build quality, and the small lenses certainly will have their own positive prospects, but the small sensor size is just a little bit limiting for what most compact system camera users will be looking for. Overall, we gave the Pentax Q 80%.